Today, we talk about, are you fulfilling your brand promise? And I just want to talk about for a moment, what is a brand promise? Well, it's a commitment that is made by a company to our customers. So it really outlines what they consistently expect from the product and the services and the overall experience that your customers expect from our companies. It truly encapsulates the core values, the mission of the brand, also serving as a guiding principle for all company operations and also for customer interactions as well. The brand promise is truly designed to build trust and loyalty by really ensuring that customers know exactly what to anticipate whenever they engage with the brand. And as you know, as salespeople, we spend our life trying to create loyal, trustworthy relationships with our customers. So the brand promise naturally goes hand in hand, right, with everything that we're trying to do. So let's think about what are some of the characteristics of what a brand promise is. And I guess to start off with, it's clear and specific. So a brand promise should really easily be understandable and clearly articulated. It should also succinctly convey what our customers truly should expect. Next, it should be authentic. So that authenticity piece really needs to reflect those true core values and capabilities of the company, because authenticity really ensures that the promise is believable and it can consistently be met.
Wow, that's awesome, Beck. Of course, being clear, being specific, being authentic is definitely a DNA for a brand promise. And
Right.
I think before I get to share a little bit, I wanted to really take a step back and also share that brand promise is something in today's time and age. I see a lot of businesses undervaluing the power of brand promise, and that's not good for your business. So if you're watching us live here or you watch us later, it's a very clear message to keep your focus right on the brand promise. And there's a way to really build your brand promise. And the first thing that I would like to share is about being customer focused. Now, of course, I understand customer focused is an overly used terminology in the business world, but it means a lot for any business. And what I mean here is, I can give you an example. Beck, I was having a business coaching session with the world's largest incubator, T Hub in Hyderabad, India, last evening. And I was talking to the startups and business owners, and I realized that how important it is for everyone to understand the power of the branding for their business, the power of the brand promise for their business. And that's the reason I took them through an exercise where we first decoded the ideal customer avatar for each of their businesses. And
Mm.
that's your first step. While you're building your brand promise, that's your first step, to decode your ideal customer avatar or persona, to know as much as possible about your customers, their frustrations, their fears, their feelings, their desires, their problems, their challenges, their roadblocks. Where do they hang out? What do they like? What do they dislike? The more you know about your customers, the better you will be able to distill that information into a clear message.
Right.
And once you have a clear message, then you can convert that into an impact statement that your product, your service can really deliver. And once you have the impact statement, that kind of becomes your brand promise to your customers. And many times what I've seen with many businesses, that they have brand promise, but the brand promise is more towards what their product is all about, what their service is all about, what they think they should be doing, what they think the customers should be needing or having. But it should be the other way around. It should be customer focused. It should be, what are the pain points of your customers? What are the opportunities that they're not able to tap onto that you can help them tap on? You can help them get benefited from, and then comes your product or service as a tool to get that benefit, to get that outcome that your customers are really looking for. They need it. And that's very important to keep that in mind. And that's all going to happen only when you are customer focused. Because you go around and see many businesses, you will see that the brand promise is more towards the business themselves rather than towards being customer focused. And that's when you are customer focused, that's when your customers will resonate with your brand promise. And at that stage itself, they are semi ready to buy. And then your whole sales process becomes so much more easier. So keep that in mind, the power of being customer focused, putting yourself in their shoes, and then creating your brand promise, which is based on what you can solve for them or what opportunities you can help them take advantage of. So customer focused. Now, the next thing is about being consistent. That's another gap that I see in a lot of businesses that I coach or I keep researching about. You may have a good brand promise that resonates with your customer, and that's how the customers give you their first business. But the problem is inconsistency in your delivery. So if you're not consistent with your brand promise at each stage, at each interaction point with your customer will be a one-time customer, and your business will never be profitable and sustainable. And that's the power of being consistent with your brand promise. If you are being consistent every single time, yes, problems can happen, goof ups can happen, but then there are ways to really do recovery and come back strongly, and the customers will support you again because they understand that mistakes are bound to happen. But consistency is something that you as a salesperson or a business owner or a startup founder, you need to be working specifically on the consistency, ensuring what are the SOPs, standard operating procedures in place that ensures that there is consistency in your brand promise delivery. That's super, super, super critical. And then the next thing that I'm always seeing that a lot of companies, even after having a good brand promise, which is customer focused, and you're trying to be consistent, but then you don't know where you're heading. And that's where it's important to measure if your brand promise is being consistently delivered or not. And that calls for having, first of all, a proactive experiential implant throughout the customer interaction touch point. And then on top of that, to have tracking mechanisms such as Net Promoter Score, customer satisfaction, and there's so many more across each stage of your customer experience journey, customer interaction journey, so that you know whether you're living up to the brand promise of your customers. And it can also help you adapt and maybe evolve your brand promise based on the newfound interest or needs or wants of your customers. So also it's important that you don't just do the measurement or the tracking towards the end of the whole sales cycle, because that could be the point where if the customer is not happy, you don't have much of a time to really get the customer's confidence back. So it's important that each stage, starting from the pre-sales stage, where your branding is happening, where your marketing is happening, online, offline, to the sales stage, to the operations or customer service experience stage, at each stage of your customer interaction, you need to be tracking it. And it's okay if you are asking for feedback at each stage of the journey, because the customers will understand that you value their business, you value their opinion, you want to even get better and better as per their likes and dislikes, as per their feedback. So that becomes more powerful, because I'm sure you're not in the business for the next few years. You are in the business for eternity,
Lifetime.
right?
Yeah.
So it's important to measure at each stage of the journey. What do you say, Beck?
Oh, just as you're saying all of this, it's given me a couple of examples that I probably want to share. And if we all think about this, Apple, their brand promise is think different. And so, Apple promises to um, imply innovation and creativity and offer really unique cutting edge technology. Now, what if here's what their brand promise is, and you're thinking, excellent, that sounds like me, and then you get it home and it just nope, doesn't work. Nope, nope. Seen this stuff before. We all know, we've all seen how cutting edge Apple was when they came out with the iPhone. FedEx, when it absolutely positively has to be there overnight. I remember that. I remember that brand promise from when I was a little girl. This promise truly emphasizes reliability, speed in delivery. Like get it, don't absolutely positively get it the next day. It's not okay for FedEx, and they will work on that. Nike, I love this. To bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. Now, I'm not an athlete, I'm far from it, but I wear Nikes because Nike values the long distance round the world runner right down to me. And they focus on motivation, excellence in performance for all of their athletes, which are their customers. And so as I'm walking the street with my little dog, I'm thinking I'm an athlete. And in my mind, I'm running a marathon. Coca-Cola, probably the largest drink company in the world, right? To refresh the world in mind, body, and spirit and inspire moments of optimism. That's their brand promise. They promise a refreshing experience that brings joy and positivity. So as you were talking about all of that, Amit, these ideas came to mind of thinking, yeah, I can see that. Now, if they fail on that brand promise, like you were saying, we can fail. We can fail at a brand promise, but it's how we actually go about it. Could be a good topic for another, the power of two, right? How do we come
Yeah.
back from that fail? And how do we come back from it? And then how do we create a lifelong loyal customer when that happens? Anyway, while I've
Right.
stopped, I'd like to announce this month for the Power of Two, our offer is yet again a 1 hour complimentary discovery meeting. And I say yet again because you guys are telling us you're really enjoying it. So we're going to keep it. We're not going to take it away from you. In addition to that 1 hour discovery meeting where Amit and I, will go through all of the areas that you feel that you need our help with, and we can kind of deep dive into, where we can help and, what success looks like for you. But on top of that, we'd like to offer you a 10% discount on our coaching and training services. And all you have to do is use the code May24POWER. I don't have to spell any of that because it's all pretty easy. MAY24 power, POWER. So in any kind of communication that you might have with us on email or instant messaging or WhatsApp, use that code because then we can track how many people were interested in what we had to say. And of course, our live attendees coming in, LinkedIn tends to always be where we've got the most people, which is absolutely fantastic. So reach out to us. But thanks for that short ad break. Let's go back to Amit, who can tell us a little bit more as a salesperson what we need to do. Back to you, Amit.
Yeah, thanks, Beck. And that was wonderful. Guys, do take the advantage of the offer because people are really loving it. So before I get into the next segment, Beck, I just wanted to share an experience from last evening when I was doing this group coaching session with the startup founders. One of the startup founder asked me, so Amit, am I right to say that the brand tagline is the brand promise? And I said, not all the time, not all the time. Let's take two examples from the examples that you just gave, right? Nike, the tagline is just do it. Everyone knows it, right? But then what their brand promise is that they want to uh, bring innovation and inspiration to every athlete in the world. So just do it is their tagline, but they want their brand promise is different. Now let's take example of Apple. Think differently. Now, of course, this kind of relates completely to their brand promise because they always think differently and they want us to think differently in our lives to do things. So in this case, the brand tagline is almost the same as the brand promise, but it's not the same all the time with all the brands. So that was a real good question. I thought maybe it's a confusion with a lot of other salespeople, business owners, or startup founders. So that's my answer to that question. All right.
Good
So
one.
let's move on. Let's move on to the next segment where we would like to share some of the ways that you can fulfill your brand promise, or at least you can check if you are following that consistently, then great. If not, start doing it consistently. And there will be some areas where you're not doing anything at all, so you can start adding them on. But here is the thing before I get started. The list is long, so we will have to keep it a few areas and few points for this month, and then the rest of it will carry forward to the next month. So we don't overwhelm you with all the nuggets in this month itself. So we pace it out, we talk about it at the right pace, and if there are questions, we can answer the questions as well. Yeah.
Perfect.
So are we ready?
Hit me.
Okay. Okay. All right. So the first one is very important. It's basic. It's critical. Is to understand the brand promise. Now, a lot of times, what happens, what I see with salespeople or operations people, that the brand promise is designed, developed, finalized, and broadcasted to the whole world with the help of the founders, business owners, CEOs, and the branding, and maybe the marketing team. But since the sales team, the marketing, the sales team, the operations team, the finance team, any backend team, since they were not essentially involved in the whole process of defining and designing the brand promise, I've seen that's one of the biggest gaps, that they don't understand the brand promise. And that should be the starting point for you. If even if you are, let's say, a sales professional and you are working for a brand that has been in the business for 100 years and the brand promise has been set for the longest time, the first thing that you need to do is to first go find out what is the brand promise of your business, of your company. Understand it word by word clearly. And that's when you will start to keep that at the top of your mind. It's so much critical because you're the ones who are going to be living the brand promise with a customer, because the starting point is definitely a brand promise resonates with the customer. And that's when the customer is kind of a semi-ready to buy your product or service. And then you come into the picture to finally make that sale, convince them and finally make that sale. And if you are not living the brand promise at the sales stage, the customers will immediately see a dip in their experience of the brand promise that they were offered online through different marketing mediums, through marketing teams and the branding teams. And that's where the customers will put off, and they will, even if they mention or they don't mention, they will not be interested in buying your product or service. And all your effort, all your hard work will go in vain trying to convince the customer because they have a specific outcome in mind, but you're talking something different. So you need to align your speech, your interaction, your presentation, your negotiation, all in line with the brand promise. And that's the power of the brand promise. So understand the brand promise before you hit your customers in the market. Now, the next one is to align with brand values. Now, every brand has about 3 to 5 core values, and you as an individual, as a professional, whether you're a salesperson or you are a CEO of the company or you are the startup founder, you have your personal core values. It could be 3 to 5 personal core values. Now, the first thing that you need to do is to see what are your company or your business core values, brand values, and what are your personal core values, and align them. Could be that 2 or 3 of them are already aligned, so that's great, but you still need to keep the rest of the two in mind. So whether you are completely in line or not, it's important that you bring yourself to the alignment of your brand core values, your brand values, and that's when the customers will start to feel that yes, they're getting, everyone is talking the same language, everyone is performing, behaving in the same way, and that can only happen when you are aligned with your brand promise. So align your personal core values with your brand core values. That's something which is super critical. Beth, what do you say?
Yeah, it's seems so basic, right? Seems so rudimentary, but it's so important. So is customer centric approach. Being obsessed with our customers is so important. Remember what it was like when we went through a pandemic and we didn't have any customers? Our customers are so incredibly important to our business. And I know, again, it sounds so simplistic, but I think that there are times where salespeople and businesses in general kind of think customers get in the way a little bit. But I just want us to keep going back and thinking and remembering when we didn't have customers, gosh, life was hard. And so think about when you first started out. Where did you find your customers? Where did you go and get them? What were your customers saying to you about your brand, about your company, about the products and the services that you have? And if you're not listening to the customer's voice and hearing what they're saying, it's really great feedback for you to be able to understand whether your core brand promise actually is aligning with what it is that you're actually giving to them. So prioritize solving their problems, meeting their needs and their requirements as you have outlined in your brand promise. Kind of, again, seems pretty simplistic. Something that I want to go back to Amit's point about is everybody using the same voice. I often have people request in my sales training, can we invite marketing in? And I scream from the rooftop when people want to invite marketing into sales training, because learn to market the way I'm teaching these salespeople to sell. and sales and marketing, they already go together in their name, but why are they not working together? So again, customer centric approach is really so important. And again, this brings up a consistent message from the communication piece, whether it's from the marketing brand message, through the images and the way that the videos or just your images are all talking. You can always see when a young startup company decides to do their own marketing and they use images that they've pulled from the internet just doesn't fit with their message. So avoid kind of contradicting your core values or your core message with any of those sales pitches. If anything, if you get confused, just stick to the basics, stick to the what is easiest, which is your own voice. And I guess my final piece for today is educate yourself. Stay updated with the latest products, services, policies. Gosh, AI could be a whole other topic we could be talking about, right? But be knowledgeable as salespeople of how we can then deliver on the brand promise more effectively. I feel like I want to bring in an example with this, but if you've got a brand that is a simplistic brand, for example, I don't want to mention any brands. That's my problem. You've got a very simplistic. Your brand simplifies people's lives. Don't use overly complicated language. Use simplistic layperson's language. That's kind of simple. That's kind of basic, right? For me, my brand promise is establishing dynamic sales teams globally. I can't say that if I don't do it globally and if I don't create or establish dynamic sales teams who convert 70 to 80% rather than 20, 21%. If I'm not doing that, I can't use that as my brand promise, right, Amit?
Oh, absolutely. I think that was a wonderful example, Beck. This is so critical, and I'm just looking at the watch. We're
I
coming
know.
to the end of our time, but
Again.
we have at least 15 more, if
Oh,
15 more ways that
yeah.
you can actually fulfill your brand promise.